Chapter 21, Pain on Trial. Buttoning up his trench coat against the unseasonably cold Seattle weather, Bill sat alone on the bench, waiting to meet Andrew for lunch. He had walked from his hotel to Occidental Square in the heart of Pioneer Square, one of Seattle's most colorful districts characterized by an uneasy mix of world-class urban professionals with world-wounded street people. 1 block north is a business district, with trade banks channeling money to and from centers of prosperity from all over the world. 1 block east is the gospel mission, with food banks channeling people to and from centers of disparity from all over the world. 1 block south are 2 new and fabulously expensive sports stadiums, Safeco and Quest Fields. 1 block west is the original skid road where turn-of-the-century logs and men once skid into the Puget Sound. On the border of the cobblestone square are ivy-covered brick buildings remodeled for various coffee shops, art galleries, and bookstores. Bill looked forward to spending time in this place with Andrew to work on the first steps to restoring the relationship. Even so, this is a Sunday afternoon, and the square was quiet and empty. While Bill sat deep in thought, he gave thanks for the past weeks of peace to consider the future. Andrew was back at the University of Washington now, preparing to declare his major, while Bill was weighing his options for future employment. In this stream of thought, he hardly noticed the church vans full of youth that pulled up to the square. They began to unload boxes filled with brown bag lunches and bag after bag of clothing. Finally became aware of their activity when the group spread out tarps on the cobblestone pavement before him and then placed neatly folded stacks of coats, pants, shirts, shoes, and sleeping bags. Most were serviceable but used items, however many had retail tags still attached. Off to one side they called into service some wintering cafe tables for the lunches and a large canister of hot chocolate. As things were getting set up, 2 or 3 of the residents recognized the opportunity unfolding before them. The word couldn't have traveled faster if everyone were armed with walkie-talkies. In minutes, a couple dozen street people came from all directions and were moving around the tarp, politely accepting help from the youth who were prepared with lunches, hot chocolate, and engaging smiles. The spirit of grace attending every personal exchange humbled Bill. In reflection, he thought, I wonder if Andrew's youth group had conducted themselves as well as these youth today. Bill felt like a fly in the light post as he listened in on conversations going on all around. There was a young man in his 30s who had just worked enough at Labor Ready to earn a ticket on a ship to find work in Alaska. Because of the cold weather, he needed good boots to work in construction and possibly a fishing boat. With the boots and a new sweater, he gratefully declared that he was set for the trip. Then there was what appeared to be a friendly black man who, upon learning the Mexicans had arrived, became hostile and declared, "They're going to steal us blind." The adult youth leaders walked up to him and gently insisted that there was no threat and there was more than enough for everyone. Eventually, he just left grumbly. There was a gentle but resolute Asian bag lady whose disfigured mouth only allowed certain sounds which were taken as a yes or a no. After being helped by several youths, she signaled which items were to her liking. When satisfied that she'd seen all, she just disappeared. 3 men in their 30s introduced themselves by name: Carl, Jack, and Canuck. They each offered variations on a story about divorce, child support, and garnished wages. It was already evident from their decayed teeth, but Carl mentioned casually that they were meth addicts. He pointed to a parking garage where they had found a warm stairwell to sleep. All of these men and women were treated with respect and served in every way possible by energetic youth offering blessings in the name of Christ. It was not long before the bustling activity died down as the selection was noticeably depleted. Then, at a distance, what appeared to be the last straggling derelict stepped onto the square. With a wobbling shuffle, he painfully dragged one leg behind the other. It was evident that one of his arms was hanging limp under layers of ragged coats, sweaters, and shirts. Yet for all this, the most disturbing feature of the man was his bloodied face with dried wounds all around both eyes from a recent and terrible beating. It was difficult to imagine how he moved through the cold air. When he finally made it to the edge of the tarp, a youth came directly up to him to ask, "Sir, can I help you with anything?" The man's response included mumbled words interspersed with those barely intelligible. The stench of alcohol and soiled clothing was evident to all nearby. The youth turned to specifics. "Is your arm injured?" "It's all broke up," he responded, as he lifted it just high enough to reveal a horribly bruised and broken hand and arm and then let it drop. The youth didn't seem to know what else to do, so he offered the man a hot chocolate and 2 brown bag lunches. With only one good hand, the man made a wavering choice that finally settled on the lunches. Another youth asked if he needed a sleeping bag. "Yes, sirree, I could," said the man with a broad, toothless smile, which set the youth on a mission. When he finally found one, he went about wrapping it in plastic against the weather. As this was in process, the man mumbled again that he was hurt, but it was unclear what he meant. Finally he said, "I got my head hurt real bad," and he pulled a baseball cap off to reveal an old injury that left his skull caved in on the entire side of his head. It was impossible to imagine how anyone could survive such an injury, much less live for all these years. Mercifully, he put his hat back on. The youth did not flinch. He looked him in the eyes, reached out to touch his good arm, and said, "My name is Chris. What's yours?" With this, the man's eyes cleared. A smile came over his face, and he said plainly enough for all to hear, "My name is Alexander Chase Jones, thank you." Bill was moved deeply because his response reminded him of Andrew when he was a child. When asked for his name, he would proudly announce to anyone who asked, "My name is Andrew Philip Elder, thank you." Surely this man had parents who loved him every bit as much as I love Andrew. Finally, the other youth returned with a sleeping bag all wrapped up. However, now they had a dilemma. The one arm was just as lame as before. His good hand was weakly grasping the 2 brown bag lunches, and now all that remained was one index finger, which he extended as though he just realized it existed. The youth looked down at the extended finger and then up at the man, and they smiled. "Hook her on here," he said. With permission given, the youth tested the finger to see if it had the strength to hold. It did. Everyone within eyesight was amazed and humbly gratified. The man now had all that he wanted and began to turn away, but then he stopped short and turned back. "God bless you," he said with his broad smile. With that, the Spirit of God's grace moved over everyone who witnessed what had just happened. Many paused respectfully to watch him shuffle and wobble off again to the edge of the square. Bill sat considering what he had just experienced, and then he heard a strangely familiar voice from over his shoulder. "When you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me."